agenda was posted to the Secretary of State's website on Friday at 4:34. Roll call. Hidalgo County,
Present.
City of Brownsville,
Present.
Cameron County, City of McAllen, City of Edinburgh, City of Mission, City of FAR, City of Harlingen, City of San Benito, Stark County, Cameron County RMA, Hidalgo County RMA, Valley Metro, Texas FAR District. Quorum. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 3, public comments. No, okay. Okay, there are no public comments. Then we'll move on to action item 4. This is for approval of the minutes for the December 12th, 2024. Are there any discussion? If there is no discussion, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Second, first and a second. Okay. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 4B, discussion and action on the RGB MPO Policy Board Executive Committee. This action will allow the Executive Committee to examine, address, and recommend best policy practices to include any technical or operational needs of the MPO. Other boards have this type of committee that function very similarly. The committee could meet as needed, and the current bylaws will need to be amended to incorporate the new committee. Mr. Medina, you have a comment?
So in terms of the structures of other MPOs that are currently across the state, the executive committee, if you will, becomes the filter for the general regular body that makes the ultimate decision making. So one example here is that if we were to introduce a new policy from a technical perspective, we would certainly bring that technical component to the technical advisory committee. And then any recommendation that would come from the technical committee would go to the executive committee, where we would look at a component in terms of polity. So we would want to examine that this technical recommendation, that it is meeting the federal or state requirements, right, to ensure that it is legislatively applicant. And then from there, we would make a recommendation through the executive committee to the policy board to make any decision in terms of that policy, as an example. And this would also be in terms of if we were to develop a project request form, things of that nature, to make sure that as we, understanding that we will go through another review in the next 4 years to make sure that we're meeting the spirit of the federal requirements. So that's an example.
Any discussion, any questions? Just for the record, so today we're approving the approval of the committee, but as far as who will be in the committee will come at a later time?
Yes, that's correct. And then in part of the formation, what we can also do is provide how other MPOs are structured with regard to the executive committee. Some committees are chaired by 5 members of the policy board or even 7. And then we can also provide the bylaws that committee has. And in terms of once we have all that ready, certainly we'll have legal come back and give examples of that. And then the other thing is that we would also have to amend the actual bylaws of the policy board to incorporate this executive committee.
Any other discussion, questions?
Is this coming from a need to do this, or is just other do it, so we're gonna do it?
So I believe, sir, that it is a need. And so in terms of the federal review that we had just recently, this was a discussion that I had with the federal partner. And as we move through the development of this next long-range plan, it is anticipated that we're going to be bringing forward policies, procedures, so that the policy board allows us to identify the need in terms of moving projects forward, identifying what is eligible in terms of project development. So it is a best practice. And of course, from the other MPO that I come from, it is something that we were very, very successful and working with the executive committee so that your own peers understand what we're trying to do, so that when the policy board collectively looks at it, it's already been vetted, if you will, sir.
I'd be concerned about how many members you have versus attendance. That just, how many times a month are you going to meet and things like that?
So ultimately, some examples that I've seen is that there is a standing calendar for the executive committee. And if there's no business, then the executive committee doesn't meet. Now, in terms of how it is structured, I've seen where other MPOs don't have a weighted vote for that committee. So it is just straight representation from the policy board. It could be 5 or 7, and they're just there to make either a political, contribution to in terms of what we're trying to accomplish that meets the federal and state requirements, or if there's a technical or operational need of the MPO.
If I may, just a couple of comments. I think the size of the committee is important. I'll give you an example. When we went through the hiring process, we had a committee of 5. And in that whole process, obviously, those of us that were fortunate to be in that committee were able to discuss things. But then we also had an opportunity to reach out to the other policy board members and get input. As an example, the county, you have multiple smaller cities that reach out to you, the county that you represent here at the MPO. So I think having a committee, possibly 5, maybe 7. I think 7 is getting a little, just, you want to keep it kind of small, but also provide an opportunity for other policy board members to be providing opinions on things that are coming up and what have you. And that wouldn't, in my mind, not keep the executive committee from reaching out and ensuring that the other policy board members are in the know as to what's happening. The last thing we want is for there to be a perception that, hey, we're going to derail this thing or make it happen without having input. Ultimately, the executive committee will provide perspective, and the policy board as a whole will just say yay or nay, right? So I think that this is a good move moving forward.
Any further discussion? Do we have a motion? There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 4C. This is also an action item, RGB MPO 2025 Transportation Policy Board Meeting Calendar, request for approval. Mr. Luis Diaz, this is an action item that will allow the staff to communicate to the public the dates of the meetings on the website, securing the meeting room, and publish important meeting dates like the Transportation Improvement Plan, TIP revisions.
Yeah, so included in your packet are the dates for the upcoming policy board meetings for the year of 2025. So if there's any discussion, we could have it at this time, or any conflicts that are identified. If not, this is an action item to approve these dates as presented and included in the packet.
A motion, do we have a second?
I do
Any
have a
discussion?
discussion. I think that like we do every year at TxDOT, we are required to submit the last Friday or the first Friday of December, I believe, the UTP candidates and things of that nature. You all may recall just a month ago, we had to do a special meeting. So instead of December the 17th, I would move that we have that meeting December the 3rd. That way we're all aligned. We have an approval by the policy board, and then we submit our candidates on December the 5th. So that would be my recommendation. December the 3rd would be the only change that I would recommend at this time.
Thank you for that. One of the things we want to highlight is that when we establish this calendar, we'll come back, if you will, with the final product. And with the final product, we anticipate to highlight very important dates that the policy board needs to take action on. So for example, later on, you hear the presentation about our TIP amendment. So that goes to the STIP, right, at the state level. So we want to make sure that those dates are highlighted. And then, of course, we want to reach out to the district to understand that if there's any other internal deadlines that they need, that way we capture on this set calendar.
So we have a motion as presented.
With
With the correction? Okay.
I'll say.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to accept with the change of December 17th to December 3rd, and we have a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 4D, discussion and action to recommend the approval of the RGB MPO to participate in the fiscal year 2025 Surface Transportation Block Grant STBG Partnership. This is also an action that will allow the MPO to participate in flexing unspent Category 7 monies to other funding categories in lieu of returning the money back to the federal government. And also in your packet, there is a resolution that's attached that will also need our approval. Yes.
Alrighty, included in your packet is a resolution. This is reoccurring. So this did happen back in February of last year. So this is highlighting whether we're actually in agreement to be part of the partnership alongside our TxDOT partners for utilizing federal funds. So this ultimately gathers all federal funds allocated to the MPO and expends them prior to lapsing, of course. And it goes on to selected categories of either 1, 4, 11, and 12 within the MPO boundaries. And I want to mention as well that this does not remove funds from any program projects. It does not delay any projects. Everything moves forward as planned in accordance with the MTP, TIP MTP. So this is just provide concurrence. Yes, sir. Any questions about the item? And this is a total of, I failed to mention, 24.3 million.
So basically, this is a safeguard so that the funds don't lapse.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and if I may, this does not affect at all Category 7. This is just providing TxDOT an opportunity to work with the federal partners. It's the color of money,
Right.
but it does not affect at all Category 7.
Yes, sir. Thank
Any
you.
further discussion? Questions? Okay, do it. Oh, there's a motion and a second. Is all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 4E, amendment to the contract with Alliance Transportation Group, ATG, to include Task 8. We are going to have Mr. Cantu present on this. I do know that these are 8 out of the 20 recommendations to be addressed with the amendment. This will allow the MPO to capture some of the recommendations outlined in that federal review that we experienced in December. Of course, hiring a different vendor is possible, but it may introduce a delay to the MTP schedule, which of course we all know that would take at least 3 months. So, Fernando?
Good afternoon, board members. I'm here to present, of course, the contract amendment. This would be the second amendment to the contract. As shown in the screen, the new amendment will just extend and add task 8, which identified 8 tasks from our 20 recommendations. And due to the time crunch that the MTP has to be developed by December, if we did an RFP to go out and seek another vendor, it would take us about 3 months just to do the RFP, which would make even shorter time. So we just extended the contract for ATG so that they can do it. And I'm asking for approval for $127,802 to amend the contract to include that task 8. There is no procurement issues because this contract has already been executed and we can amend it as many times as needed, as long as the contract has not expired yet, and it doesn't expire until December. So amending it is the correct thing to do.
Yes, sir. And just
Through our procurement bylaws, I do not seem that there is a cap for 25%.
so if I may just add to Mr. Cantun's discussion is that we've also have checked with TxDOT. So of course, me making sure that we're doing our due diligence in terms of procurement, that was one of the questions that I had. And so once we talked to TxDOT and they said that we could go ahead and move forward as many amendments that the policy board would like. But of course, the best practice is that when we are looking at any new work, is that we solicit RFPs or RFQs as appropriate. That way, we have a mechanism that everybody, if you will, is willing to participate and can participate in these federal and state processes.
We're addressing 8 out of the 20 recommendations. In specific, it's recommendation 1, 2, 5, 7, 12, 13, 16, and 19. 8 of the 20 recommendations.
Yes, I think the question is a result of most of us at the county or city levels have a cap as to how much you can increase contracts before you have to go out for procurement. So make sure that text that doesn't only tell you in writing, but I mean in visits, but in writing.
Correct.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Move it.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5A, presentation and reports, February 2025 Statewide Transportation Improvement Program, STIP revision cycle. Again, this is for the purpose of an announcement that allows the MPO to formally announce the request for any project change to be included in the state's short-range plan. And of course, the next opportunity won't be available till May.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon to all of our board members. As she mentioned, February 2025 revision cycle is underway. We still are patiently awaiting for the November 2024 revision cycle to be federally approved. Once it is approved, we will announce that to all of our board members as well as our advisory committee members. We will also be announcing as early as of the end of next week, the beginning of public involvement, which is a federal requirement whenever we amend the statewide transportation improvement program and or TIP. Our long-range plan or 2045 MTP will also be amended. We're currently working off of the previously approved documents from October of 2024. Those are the ones that are listed here in your packet and linked to our website. Once we have a draft ready, we will be updating our announcements section of our website where we post our public involvement information. We'll have draft documents of the short-range TIP and long-range MTP available for your review. Ultimately, we do have a deadline of February the 3rd for all of our local governments and planning partners to submit revisions to us so that we know what we have in place so we can present that to our advisory committee for their review and approval, and then ultimately again to the policy board, this board, during the scheduled February meeting for final approval. We have not received a firm deadline from the state just yet on when we'll have to upload the eSTIP portal, but we assume that it will go in line with our timeline that we have in place with our scheduled meetings for next month. As mentioned, there is a difference between administrative modifications and revisions previously. A formal revision does require federal approval, so that does take some time, of course. If there's any questions in regards to what constitutes a formal revision, of course, feel free to reach out to MPO staff at any time. We do take the time, however, to notate those revisions on our summary sheets every time that we revise our short-range plan. So if there's any questions regarding the amendment cycle that's upon us now for February, anything regarding deadlines or dates that we need to meet, I'd be happy to address those at this time.
Discussion? I know I've asked Mr. Medina to provide us a little cheat sheet of some important dates that we need to remember and the deadlines, just so that we can always keep in that RGV MPO binder and so forth. Okay, so if there's no further discussion, we'll move on to item 5B.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Announcement of planning project call, the Unified Planning Work Program, UPWP Task 5. Mr. Diaz will be presenting on this, and the purpose of this announcement is to allow the MPO to formally announce the call for special studies. And of course, there's a recommendation is to direct staff to cap the project nomination to $330,000, which would allow and yield 6 special studies. Of course, this is just the recommendation. So, Mr. Diaz?
Thank you. Yes, the call has officially opened for planning projects. We had allocated a total of 77,000 in task 5, which is the PL portion of our UPWP, our budget. But we have an additional 1.9 million available, which how Madam Chair just mentioned, allows for, 330 allocated to a possible 6 projects up for, discretion of the board. The deadline for submitting towards this call is on February 6th. So we have to have them all by end of day on the 6th of February. If there are any questions, we could take them at this time regarding the call or anything regarding to the projects.
Madam Chair, if I may, one of the things that I would like to offer in terms of project submission is that I will send out a communication to the policy board along with the TAC membership that I will make myself available maybe about a week or 2 weeks before the deadline so that I understand the submission of said projects. One of the things we want to make sure is that these projects meet the definition of regional significance. And again, they meet the spirit of a study, right? So there is a difference between the study and, a project development. But again, there are opportunities there that we could develop a study to feed the development of a project. So I will do that so that the full board is aware of that.
I mean, like, is that going to be the limit, or will there be special circumstances if a particular project runs, say, 450,000?
So I think the merit of a project, once it meets the definition of regional significance, we will examine that said project, and then of course bring it through TAC, bring it through the policy board. One of the things that we would like to see is the opportunity to have multiple studies. And so, of course, it could be a very good submission that they are asking for the said $2 million that we have available. And that's going to be something that TAC will have to review, right? And then something the policy board would have to also examine the merit of that project or that study as it relates to the amount of money that they're asking for. Of course, when they submit the project to us, we're going to do our due diligence to make sure that that really is, if you will, a $2 million project. But again, is that in my examination of how the policy board and the TAC and collectively the MPO have examined studies, I don't see that there is a set selection process, correct? And again, going back to the motion that was just done just recently about the executive committee, this would give us the opportunity to bring these type of policies, to TAC through the executive committee, and then of course the policy board to give us that guidance. We want to make sure that everybody understands what the rules are, right, when you're submitting a project. So this gives us a very good opportunity for me to engage community that are submitting said projects so that I have firsthand knowledge of the experience of submitting a project before I got here, correct? But again, going back to your question, sir, is that, of course, the policy board will make that decision. But in terms of having a multitude of projects submitted to us, we simply did the math and we saw that if we cap it to 330,000, it'll yield about 6 projects.
It's always possible that a project could be 150, one is 150, and there's
Correct.
another 150, well, those two
Yeah.
combine.
Right. So it's not a set,
No, sir.
but it's recommended.
Yes, sir.
A regional product we need in the valley is a rail intermodal yard. Those are yards where flat cars come in with containers on them, and they can be domestic containers or international containers, and then they can be distributed throughout the valley. It'll be a real long time before Port of Brownsville sees any container ships. And I think this will put us more in a competitive position for our industries. And to me, this is a project that's for the MPO. I don't know if a city wants to promote it, but it would seem the main rail in north of Raymondville would be an ideal location and plenty of land there. And I've talked to the railroad about it over the years, and they need some impetus from us to push the project. So I think a study would be good information for the rail to make a financial decision and maybe not even have to have a lot of our money involved in it. If you'd like to talk offline later,
Sure.
be glad to.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Need that application for that.
Mhm.
And a sponsor, right? A sponsored applicant.
Right. And if I may just add, one of the things that we did not ask, and I'm going to say it here, is that currently the MPO is managing a current planning study that was awarded. And so In that study, there was a contribution that was provided by the sponsoring agency. This time around, I felt that we didn't need to do that. I think that just allowing for the body that's nominating that project, and if the project is nominated by the policy board, the expectation is that there is no match, is what I'm trying to say. The other thing is that because we are developing this long-range plan, we have the expectation that the sponsoring agency will go through its own procurement process to manage said project. Of course, the MPO along with TxDOT would be in any conversation related to the development of said project, and the end product will come back to this policy board. You press the button.
Senator Green. Oh,
Kind of to piggyback on that, and I'll preface the comment by promising that I'll say I'm the new guy, maybe through 3 meetings, but no more after that, because that doesn't float anymore. But I don't know for sure. I don't know enough about to adequately speak intelligently about the topic. However, I do know that in the amount of time I've been at the Hidalgo County RGV, the RMA, there's been multiple questions and requests and discussions about the overweight corridor, and a study by the MPO related to, all the assets we have within the MPO, which are our bridges, the ports, the rail, and how we solve the overweight east to west, north to south, at least from this layman, not fully versed individual, seems like something worthwhile to do collectively for all of us. Something needs to be able to come off the port and get to any of the bridges, or from the bridges to the ports, or from the, y'all, you know where I'm going with it, but a comprehensive study that puts that all together, rather than every individual community asking on behalf of their community, and so forth. So just a thought.
Right, and thank you for that. So one of the things is that it is not common for an MPO to put out a call for special studies, correct? A special study that meets the definition of regional significance, it does not matter who's funding it. If it meets that threshold, it has to be in our planning documents, in this case, the Unified Working Program. And then it also has to be in the short range plan, which is the TIP. And so one of the things that if, we as the MPO collectively can identify the need. So like in this case, we have this type of overweight corridor. We have the intermodal, or what we would call a break of bulk study, is that we, the MPO, can bring that forward in our own planning component. So if the policy board decides that this is a priority, the MPO staff will program, if you will, that project. And so if we see that there is, if you will, a low application, levels that are submitted with this call, which I hope there's a high amount, we will come back and address that. So in the next coming months, we will be adopting a new UPWP, correct? So once we adopt that UPWP, when it comes to the special studies, and if we did not identify any of these projects that were nominated through a sponsor, we can come back and reprogram those or program them as a functionality of your all's comments. So with all that said, if that is the need, we shall program them.
Since the 2 RMA chairs are talking, it would be a perfect opportunity to create a unified project together between you guys.
Perfect.
Okay. Any further discussion? None. We'll move on to item 5C. Update on Texas Administrative Code, Rural Surface Transportation Program Metro Mobility, STP MM Category 7 carryover. The purpose of this is this announcement is to inform the board of the carryover amount that is affected by the code. This will occur every year unless the board takes proactive measures to ensure that projects are letting as program in the tip and any monetary amount to be below the 200% threshold. Okay, Mr. Diaz?
Yes, thank you. As Madam Chair mentioned, this is actually for the Texas Administrative Code. This was actually enacted January of last year by the TxDOT Transportation Commission. And it does indeed reflect on the amount of carryover an MPO holds in Category 7. So meaning that we would have to be within the 200% threshold. So therefore, anything over the 200% threshold does get removed from the MPO's Category 2. So I just want to highlight out of Category 2, not Category 7, which is the allocation that from TxDOT towards added capacity and construction projects. So those funds actually get moved over to Category 11, just district discretionary, towards the safety program within the region. So that is pretty much, as we've been highlighting throughout the year, last year, that this was coming and going to be enacted at the end of the year. So therefore, up on the screen, you do see the table that specifies the impacts. And if we go by this list on the MPOs on the left, we're down at the bottom right above the total. We had a total carryover of 115 million in 23, and then we got the allocation in 24 of 32.7. So therefore, our revised allocation when added up together was a total of 147.74, sorry. The total used for 24 was actually 50.25, so leaving a carryover of 97.49. So therefore, subject to TAC rule at the time was 32.01. So therefore, moving on to the next, looking at the overall availability is 136,363,997. I know it looks kind of small up there, kind of fuzzy even. But that includes the 20% match used in Cat 7, and that's reflective of 2007 through 2024. So that was the overall allocation that we were looking at. Going on to the next, sorry, got my pages out of order here. Okay, we're discussing here how much is actually subject to the TAC rule. Let's go on to the next slide, which actually highlights that figure for us. Skipping this one right there. So this one is the revised one reflective of FY 2025 for Category 7 STPMM. So in 24, we had a total of 996.7. And of course, our added allocation for 25, which is 638.45. Sorry, that's the total. So it's 33.39. Sorry, looking at my table. Yeah, I saw it too. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm looking at the wrong column here. That's the total. So 33.39 was actually allocated to us in 25. So if we add those both up, we ended up with 129.55. Total used 23.95 with an estimated FY allocation of 105.6. So therefore, the remainder was the 38.82, which is actually what's subject to TAC rule, which is what would be subject to being reallocated and removed from Category 2, moved over to safety projects within the region. So this is the update in regard to the figures and what's subject to TAC rule. And the MPO, and it's a proactive approach, has formed a tax subcommittee to actually address and look over current projects within the TIP to identify for FY 26 to see if there's any projects that are potentially able to let and utilize more of these funds to prevent future carryover in the future. So that's pretty much the overall update of this TAC rule and where we're at and what our initiatives are moving forward. If there are any questions, we could take them at this time.
Any questions?
Just a couple of comments. I mean, the whole goal here is to minimize our risk as a region, right? And so the goal is to ensure that we're spending or we're utilizing the Category 7 funding, because that's what's being tracked at the end of the day. If the Category 7 funding is above the 200% threshold, as Luis alluded to or mentioned, then Category 2 dollars, which are our projects, and whether it's on system or off system, Cat 2 is on system funding that runs the risk of being reallocated for safety projects. Safety projects are great. Safety is and will always be our number one priority. But we also have a lot of mobility type projects in our region that are currently not funded. I received requests from entities to upgrade certain roadways, and we just don't have the capacity in Cat 2 at this time. And so the goal here is to ensure and remind all of us, Cat 7 dollars need to be utilized efficiently. I think somewhere in there it said we have one project identified in 2025. The projected carryover is going to be 105.6 million for FY 2026. So $105 million, folks, that is a lot of added capacity that's being potentially removed from our ability to deliver projects for you. Because these FM roadways and what have you, even though they're on system, they're in your cities, right? And so let's work together to make that happen. In the past, some folks have said, well, Pete, you're holding up AFAs. We pushed them. Pete, you're holding up this. TxDOT. We pushed it. So now it's up to you, policy board members. I urge you, those projects that you have in the books that have not moved, please move them forward. And if they're not ready to be moved forward, let's be, as a policy board, in a position to take a step back, push those projects out to a later year, and move forward the projects that are shovel ready. We talk about it all we want, folks, but we're not doing it. That's at the end of the day. We all say, yeah, shovel ready projects come first. One project being delivered in FY 2025. I'm sorry, that's just not acceptable. Not in my mind. And if we want these projects, we need to jump on the bandwagon, make it happen, deliver projects. And if your project's not moving, please step aside and allow a project that is moving to come forward.
I have a comment.
Phase are in process, sir.
Okay,
But I mean, as far as the projects that have been, in some cases, 15 years, AFAs that go back 15 years have not yet been delivered.
I have a comment, Madam Chair. I just wanted to state that maybe I think what we ought to do is, I know we already keep track of them. We have a spreadsheet of all of them. I'm not sure if we visit on them monthly, quarterly. I just have a question on that because I think some of these projects, I don't think if you ask anybody here would want to hold up or, just hold on. I mean, I could just only speak for myself, but I think that's the majority of folks here. Some of these projects are very unique. There's factors that are beyond a city's control, a county's control, or even the state. And so we just need to keep that in mind, that we really need to evaluate these projects. Maybe, and again, I'm not sure how the review process is done. I know from the city, we're always looking at projects. I mean, we have to approve our annual budget and we have to figure out, all right, where's our capital projects? And we do that, throughout the year. I'm just kind of wondering, what do we do as an MPO so that it could help all of us, make sure we're maximizing these funds?
Right, and thank you for that. So one of the things that, as we engage the tax subcommittee, is of course to examine the projects that are currently programmed in the TIP. And as it was alluded, is that we are going to have the opportunity to potentially accelerate projects to absorb the $106 million. So one of the things that we are going to do from the MPO is that I will be distributing a memo. And in that memo, it will contain everything that is eligible under Category 7, right? So we need to make sure that everybody here knows what is eligible under Category 7. The next component to that, we're going to provide a link to one of our mapping tools to ensure that everybody knows what infrastructure is also eligible for said monies. And what we're talking about here is what we call federal function classification. Because as you know, you need to have the roadway classified to receive the money. And then going back in terms of having the subcommittee identify the problem is to examine each project that is currently programmed. So it was alluded is that if we have a project that is in fiscal year 2027 and it's for construction, one of the questions we're going to ask, where is everything beforehand? Correct? So have you had an environmental document cleared? Have you had this? Have you had that? So what I referenced earlier in terms of the project request form is where we'll introduce that mechanism. So what it will give us is the opportunity to examine that project. And it's going to give a report card, if you will. So if somebody comes in and says, well, we're getting it shovel ready from our end. Okay, that's great. Is a project in the MPO planning document? We got to make sure that. If it's not, then we probably can't move forward. But at the same time is that we have to capture that there's some level of planning work that is being done. So you need to have that component in the plan along with the construction component. So the idea is that we will come back through the subcommittee to TAC and give this presentation to you all. Because at the end of that analysis, and we come back and say, hey, we're able to move forward, say about $20 million. But we still have a lot more money that's sitting on that table. Now, this is where everything else that becomes eligible, and we start talking about other funding opportunities for those set projects. So in the end is that we will work, if you will, as a pilot project with this submission and then bring back that type of usage in terms of as we develop this, because it becomes very important and it kind of aligns with what you said earlier, is that here's an opportunity to examine a process, whether it exists or not, we can implement something. It also gives the local bodies as they start to develop their budgets, correct? Because one thing that's going to become important is that when we accelerate, you're going to have to come up with the match. Now, if we come back relatively quick, because the timeline is to come back in May to make any type of change to the tip to the STIP. When we do that, it gives that local body the opportunity to go back to the parent body and say, we are going to program a new project in the planning document, so we got to prepare for that match. The goal is to come back to the policy board with set projects, program them in May. That way, when we get ready to adopt the new plan, which will be in December, fiscal year 26 is already programmed, correct? So we're going to have two plans that are overlapping. And then more importantly is that we're going to look at the possibility of all these projects letting by the second or even the third quarter of fiscal year 26. So it's going to be a new learning environment for us, but I think it's going to be a very effective tool that we're going to implement to give you the health, or if you will, the reality of where that project is at.
So isn't the local body that has to put up the match, they can count the environmental or anything they're doing to move the project forward as part of the project, so they don't have to wait? I mean, you understand what I'm saying?
sir.
Like, so say you got a 20% match, well, you start spending your 20% now and every year and getting it advanced.
Right. So I think that's something that we'll examine. So if we just want to call it like the in-kind, if you will.
Right.
There are certain parameters, but what I really need to understand is that if you have a construction project, and let's just use that as an example, and the local body is developing everything else to get it shovel ready, I would want to make sure that said project has a CSJ. In order to have the CSJ, it has to be in the MTP. It has to be in the tip. That gives us really the district the authority to review everything. And so if the practice doesn't exist, we got to make sure we amend that. Because again, is that we have to make sure that if we identify any projects that are currently programmed and there is a gap, that we identify that gap, we come back quickly to the policy board through the TAC to make said recommendations that we appropriately program. Because we cannot program new projects in the new tip or the new MTP until you all approve the plan in December, and it'll be way too late for that. So we need to take this truncated opportunity to implement everything that we need with the current planning documents. That way we get it in the appropriate timeframe.
Wasn't there an establishment of a project readiness committee? And I know that there's been some reporting out on that, but I know that the reporting has been somewhat just in progress.
So yes, so I've seen where they make the reports, and so what we want to do is, if you will, bring forward a pilot program, and this process is going to really give you the expectation of what is required by the state, correct? So if you introduce a project, the first thing you need to do, it has to be of regional significance, and et cetera. And so what we're seeing, or at least what I've seen, is that when there's a project readiness, they're reporting on the status of said project. And again, if you're constructing a project, it may be right after it's already, of course, lit. It's an inactive tip. What I'm interested in is that if you have a project that is in the actual tip that has yet to let, and et cetera, is that project ready to go? Because the thing here is that this carryover is a direct relationship to projects not letting. And so that amount builds over time, and we get to a number about $106 million. So for me, if you will, it being the surgeon, is that I need to go in there and see what I can fix so that we don't have that overcapacity next year. And one of the things that when we reintroduce a new reporting mechanism back to the policy board, we're going to report the exact percentage that we are at. And I think with this calculation, we have to be, of course, under the 200%, but we want to be somewhere about 66%. So can you, Fernando, can you go back to the previous slide? No, the other one? Where it showed all the MPOs? Right here. So when I saw this reported back about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years, there were more MPOs that were highlighted. And of course, I would just speak when I saw the El Paso one. And so when you look at the things that the MPO has done over there, they have brought that threshold down. Mind you, we are just going to be looking at Cat 7. They also have Category 5. When you look at NCT COG, they have also, done their due diligence. And then, of course, when you look at the other MPOs, I mean, we are the ones that have the highest amount that has not been programmed appropriately. So our goal is to come back every quarter and report the progress of the tip and then where we are in relationship to that. Because at the end, again, once we send off this memo, it's going to identify those things that are eligible under that programming. So if we examine a project that is, of course, of regional significance, and I'll just say, let's say we need to do a signalization plant that's going to go from here to there. Those are very easy projects to implement, of course, but one of the things that we're going to be asking the policy board, what do we want to do in relationship to assigning monies to a project? Because I have heard that there is an unwritten rule, because I haven't seen it, is that Cat 7 is solely for construction, and that's fine if that's what the policy board wants to do. But we also need to understand what the rules are, right?
Let me speak to that. The opportunity presents itself years ago when we merged the MPOs. We talked about Category 7 dollars being put for construction only. We talked about it, but it hasn't been done. Why? We had AFAs in place that allow for preliminary engineering, environmental, schematic, right-of-way utilities, things of that nature. We had made a comment back in 2019 that we were going to honor all those AFAs, but the money's not being spent. The money is not being utilized, whether it be right-of-way acquisition or utilities. And so what winds up happening is you start looking at these numbers, money is not being utilized, and there's a carryover. 106 million, folks, is 3 years worth of funding that we're carrying over. 3 years, because we get about 32 million a year, right? And so that's the challenge that we have. Now, could Category 7 be used on system? Yes, though that's part of the rules. Years ago, the decision was made, Category 7 is only for off system. That policy board approved it, not a problem. but we're gonna have $106 million of carryover, folks. There's on-system projects that could utilize that money. Projects like the I-69 connector that we'll talk about in a little while, that is needed between Hidalgo and Cameron County to provide an alternative for I-2, right? So we need to figure out what is the best way to utilize the funding. If it were to go to construction only, then there would be an in-kind, Frank, for environmental, schematic, right-of-way, things of that nature. And if money is put for construction, it basically helps push the projects forward. Now, we are in an economic disadvantage area. We understand that. Many communities cannot afford to buy the right-of-way or do the preliminary engineering. We understand that. TxDOT participates Economic Disadvantage County program that provides relief for those reasons. But folks, $106 million is 3 years worth of funding that's being rolled over. What does that mean? The past 3 years are being rolled over. That's the challenge that we're facing.
Of deliverables.
Yeah, we got to deliver the project.
We gotta deliver the project, you know.
And so this committee that's going to be looking at the health of the project, this is allowing us to be transparent. Whatever entity is developing the project, they're going to look at the project health and say, hey, is this really where we're at? What is a realistic timeline to go to letting? And if that letting is past year 4, that project is currently in the STIP that's eating away at our fiscal constraint that is not allowing other projects to move forward. So this is a complicated process that it's all intertwined. There's lots of gears here. We got to grease those gears to get the machine moving.
You know, a couple of us, maybe more, just came from a legislative luncheon where 4 county judges were in the same room together. And, you know, Ramiro, I don't know what you heard or anybody else that might have been there. And I think some people that aren't here is probably because they're there, starting with the county judge. I heard over and over and over something that resonated with me and that I was very happy to hear. And that was this discussion amongst 4 county judges about regionality and about working together. And as it relates to the topic at hand, it seems like to me, again, back from a layman still, somebody who doesn't fully understand and the different, you know, titled monies, et cetera. I don't get it all just yet. But it would seem like to me that and I know there's been change, et cetera, but, you know, to have someone from El Paso, formerly, and glad you're here now, Mr. Medina, but looking in and seeing, you know, the Rio Grande Valley and leaving these, we know this is a problem. It's identified, but it seems like to me, and the reason I bring the conversation that was just had into the room is we get rid of this issue when all of us, every single one of us, the 2 RMAs, of course, the 4 county judges, of course, but everybody in the room here begins to work together and recognize that it's not a me or my, it's an our. And I've said it at the RMA, I said it at the meeting that we had just the other day with the county judge, and I'll say it here. And I'll be known, you know, okay, Robert and his cliche, but I believe it. The things that we do together are going to be better, even if imperfect, than those that we do perfectly apart. So yeah, and I'll end with this. It seems like to me that if several of this is happening for a reason, and some of it I believe is maybe a lack of understanding or not fully up to speed on how to make it happen or how to come together. But I want to challenge you. I want to challenge the MPO, the Rio Grande Valley MPO. All of them already came together. It is one MPO. The challenge is, and thank you for what you're doing, is identifying the issues and saying this is ridiculous. Dollars are hard to come by, and then to either leave them on the table or to kick them forward or whatever. The challenge to you is to keep speaking up and to keep educating and to keep putting processes in place so as a region we don't have this happening. And that's enough.
Challenge accepted. We're going to change that.
So you will be putting together a list of projects, of all the projects in Cat 7 that account for this carryovers in a chronological order with the oldest to the newest, and hopefully a percentage of where they're at in the process?
Yes, sir. So the work that I will help with the subcommittee is, and now we will call them legacy
There's gotta be
projects.
more staff than a subcommittee because. the
Well,
subcommittee can
it's
review
a, yes, sir, it's a combination of things, right? And so here is that, of course, we want to use the committee to help guide the conversation, right? We as staff are going to work along with them. We're going to identify the projects that were before the merger. So you're going to have the 3 MPOs. Then we're going to identify what I understand to be over-programming from both MPOs. This is Brownsville and Hidalgo. Then when the merger came, where were we at in terms of programming? Yes, sir. There were 3, but as it relates to the category 7, just 2 got them, right? But we're looking at everyone. And so the idea is that we're going to bring all those projects before the committee and then say, this is the reality of it. This is where these projects are at. These are what we can do or cannot do. And then we're going to assign the probability of moving them forward. From there, we're going to say, now we have these legacy projects, or even if they're new projects that were introduced when the MPO merged, is to see where it's at. Once we understand, and let's say that we're only able to identify $20 million worth of projects, that's still a lot of money. So we need to come back to the policy board to say, this is what we know. So now that the memo that would have preempted all this is that we identify all those elements that are eligible under category 7, and then we make the launch of a project call, because it is a very tight window. So we are asking for everybody to participate in such a short time frame. It's going to take us about 2 years to do a comprehensive plan, or in this case, a long-range plan. I mean, it is unheard of, but assembling something like this with the right spirit would get the project done.
Michael, could you go over who the committee members are, please? I have the list in front of me. I can go over them if you like.
Thank you. I just heard, I was briefed.
Okay, so my understanding, City of McAllen, Hidalgo County, City of Edinburgh, City of Brownsville, Cameron County RMA, Hidalgo County RMA, City of Harlingen, and Texas FAR District. And the goal here is this committee members as a whole are not going to be looking at not only their projects, but they need to be looking at regional project and ensure that there's good transparency. There's a scorecard. Where are you at? What percentage complete? And when do you anticipate letting? And to me, this technical committee that's going to be put together to review that has a tremendous responsibility to be able to be forthcoming. Here are the facts. And then this policy board could be presented with the facts, and we make decision based on fact, not on hearsay, not on politicking, not on, hey, my project's more important than yours. Here are the facts, and we can make good decisions.
I think that's been agreed on over and over. We just haven't put it into action. Time to take action. Yes. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, moving on to item 5D, Transportation Management Area, TMA, Federal Certification Review Update. Mr. Luis Diaz, the purpose of this announcement is to inform the board of the recommendations of the the TMA federal visit that we got back in December of the review, and to include the commendations. These are the good things that we did, right? And the federal review team will issue an official letter followed by a timeline addressing any recommendations.
Yes, so out of the federal review that was held December 5th through the 6th, on December 7th, which was the last day ultimately of the federal review, there was this is the revised list that was provided December 7th, which is the day after our closeout of the federal review. There were 20 recommendations or areas or opportunities for improvement or to do more than we're doing already as an MPO. Were provided. It was a total of 20 items. Within those, 8 of them are being already addressed as part of the contract amendment presented earlier today as part of the Alliance Transportation Group of the MTP, the 2050 MTP development. So therefore, these recommendations are already being worked on within the MPO. There were some other ones as well in regard to our public participation and how we engage and, our website and making improvements in that end. And also there were recommendations for the MPO to acquire additional staff to assist with various tasks throughout the MPO. And on the flip side, there were also 20 commendations listed within the packet as well, which are good things, and credible things that the MPO is partaking in. So that pretty much sums up the update. As well, the federal review team will be coming back to TAC and policy to provide the final report sometime later this year.
Madam Chairman, if I may just add, is that once we get the official documentation from the federal partners, then we will provide a time frame for us to address said comments.
Those are included in your packet, the recommendations and the
Yes.
commendations. Okay. Okay, moving on to item 5E, TJKM Transportation Consultants, Safe Street for All, SS4A Comprehensive Plan Midway Project Status. The purpose of this is to announce it's an announcement that will give the board an update on the project development. Mr. Amin? Is he on?
Can I share my screen? Can you hear me?
Yes. We can hear you.
Fernando, can I share my screen?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. We are here to present or provide an update on the Safe Streets for All action plan for the RGV MPO. As we might be aware that RGV MPO was awarded SS4A funds to develop a comprehensive safety action plan for all modes of transportation, and the overarching goal of the project is to implement safety measures, policies, and programs to eliminate preventable fatal and severe collisions by 2050, and also make investments in safety in a manner that is fair and equitable for all residents of all ages. The scope of the work is to evaluate existing condition, conduct crash data analysis, provide communication and engagement of the community, and develop short-term, mid-term, and long-term implementable measures, as well as strategies taking into consideration equity and land use. The first 4 items on the scope of work has been completed, and we are currently working on the last 4 items of the project. Our schedule is to develop the final action plan and get it adopted by March 18th of this year. As a part of the project, we conducted a robust outreach plan where we have conducted 2 meetings with the pedestrian and bicycle advisory committee, 4 meetings with the steering committee, 2 meetings with the TAC, and 2 public outreach events. I would like Allison to chime in to provide summary on the public outreach.
Yes, thank you. We started with putting together a public engagement plan, and in there we designed it to have what we called 2 rounds of public engagement. The first round was held back in June of 24 as a visioning session. It included the stakeholders, some staff, and regional transportation providers. It was really to get an understanding from their level of the existing conditions. The second round was held in September at community events we piggybacked on in Brownsville and Harlingen, where we spoke to members of the public and were able to get areas and problematic locations identified by them. As part of the beginning of this project, we put together a project website specific to this. It included an interactive map function, where folks could go on and plot any given location that they knew was problematic. That could be anything from the streets or roads to the sidewalk conditions to angles of things to, we even had folks tell us about potholes and landscaping issues. At these public events, we also just noted that we had bilingual staff, and then we also purchased some unique promo items to get folks to engage with us. Slide. This just highlights the website that we put together. It included the locations and times and information about the events that we have already held. It's been updated to reflect any information we have received. And on the right-hand side is a quick image of the interactive map that was used. Slide. This is a quick evaluation of all of the information that we received from the public at large. We received approximately 125 unique individual inputs of information. They told us anything from pedestrian friendly or traffic issues. As I mentioned prior, it could have been about crosswalks or better maintained sidewalks. They advised us of traffic congestion and areas that we should look at for improved traffic flow. And also this came down to the public transit issues options as well. They provided us issues with safety, feelings of places where extra speeding was happening, and the request for more visible traffic enforcement. They also told us about things like lighting that could be better to enhance visibility, or corners or things that they felt weren't good sight lines. And then some things that may not be as relevant to these projects. We also were told about potholes and then issues with stray dogs, but we've encapsulated that all in our reports. And that is what we did on the public engagement side. And Nayan, I'll let you take it back.
Thanks, Alyson. So we conducted a comprehensive collision analysis for the project. And the slide in front of you summarizes by the local jurisdictions or the local boundaries. We conducted collision analysis for the RGV MPO area, Cameron County, Hidalgo, Starr counties, and city of Brownsville and Harlingen. The slide in front of you is included within your package, but it provides a gist of the collision analysis for the last 10 years that was conducted. Within the RGV MPO area as a whole, there were 88,192 collisions, out of which 253 resulted into fatality and 1,404 resulted into serious injuries. We also identified the mode of transportation involved in the collisions, the violation categories, the lighting conditions, as well as the manner of collisions. As you can see, within the RGV MPO, 32% of the collisions were attributable to unsafe speed, and 29% of them were attributable to automobile right-of-way. Throughout the RGV MPO area, we identify the collision profiles by jurisdiction and by agency. And what we found was that there are 4 key collision profiles. One of them is broadside. The second one is unsafe speed. The third one is automobile right-of-way. And the fourth one is hitting an object. So it identifies the countermeasures that needs to be implemented to curb the collision types or the profiles that were identified as a part of the collision analysis. We have also identified high injury networks with respect to the corridors as well as with respect to the intersections. So similar exercise has been conducted for all the regions or all the jurisdictions what I identified earlier, and they are included in the package what you have in front of you. And our next step is to start identifying the countermeasures and the strategies and policies that needs to be implemented to enhance safety throughout the RGB MPO area. With that, I would like to open it up for any questions you may have.
Any questions?
Madam
Are there
Chair,
any
I think just one of the things I'd like for staff to just very briefly give us why this project is relevant to the MPO. And so I think that, Mr. Rodriguez will give us a synopsis of how we integrate this project into the planning process.
Yeah, so this project will help us for the implementation grant. So whatever we find from this SS4A plan, we can incorporate that for the city of Brownsville, city of Harlingen, and Stark County and Hidalgo County.
Well, I think if my add is that, as it was discussed earlier, is that where I have seen success in this is that when either this project is identified through the MPO planning documentation or through a comprehensive plan or whatever it is in terms of documentation, we do know that when there is a federal grant, a lot of the times the agency that's awarding the money will like to see some type of project that is memorialized in a document. So again, this also gives us the opportunity for the MPO itself now to go out after these grants. So us incorporating in our planning process from a safety perspective, we're able to identify any of these projects within the region. Therefore, we can work either autonomously through the MPO or working with one of the member agencies to go after these grants.
Also, we can utilize some of those tech funding that are taken away from category 2 to safety to apply here, right? To apply here. That's where
When
they
is
can be
it
used.
due to be finished? What's,
It's going to be done in March of 25 this year. Yes.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, we'll move on to item 5F. Thank you so much. Alliance Transportation Group, ATG, Metropolitan Transportation Plan update. And of course, the purpose of this announcement will give the board an update on the plan development schedule.
We have today with us Alliance Transportation Group, which is our consultant working on the development of the plan. Mr. Ed and Ben are here to present to us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We want to take a moment to walk you through where we are in the development of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. We've got a few things we want to cover. We're going to try to do it in short order, but again, we're going to leave our information behind to allow you an opportunity to review it. And again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ben to run through our agenda.
Thank you, Ed. We appreciate getting to work with your staff on this MTP update. We understand it's a big effort to look at the whole region. There's a lot of data that's incorporated in it. Excuse me, a quick update on where we are on deliverables. You'll see there some progress on where we have delivered all of our deliverables on certain of our project tasks. We've looked at goals and objectives from the previous MTP. We looked at a deep dive at a lot of different types of data from crash data, pavement and bridge condition analysis, travel time reliability, even looking at our transit asset performance measures, transit safety performance, talking to our transit partners there, and then doing some public involvement and stakeholder engagement. So we've spoken to a lot of you and your TAC members, getting some really good feedback about regional priorities, looking at regional planning efforts as well at the city and municipal level. We have delivered all of our technical memos with the exception of an active transportation memo, which is in its final stages. We'll be delivering this month. This plan incorporates federal and state performance measures and planning factors, making sure that we address, there's a lot of things that go into how we do long-range planning. It's different than developing a TIP where you have an opportunity to look out 25 years and consider balancing all these different initiatives and priorities. Again, making sure that we report and collect data on those federal required measures like our safety, pavement and bridge, and travel time reliability. We are currently in attainment for air quality. So our PM3 performance measures are only incorporating our travel time reliability. However, the EPA has adjusted a threshold for particulate matter, which might put the Rio Grande Valley in non-attainment in the next 2 years. So this MTP won't have to report on those measures, but we're trying to do some advanced work with your staff to try to set you up for success if and when that threshold is crossed. Like we said, one of the important factors here is getting feedback from the public. So we spoke to a lot of you virtually and in person. We also went out and did a lot of in-person engagement. We piggybacked off of existing events. So the UTRGV Back to School Bash, I think there were over 2,000 students that attended that. We had several hundred stop by our table. We got a lot of really good feedback. Granted, that's, very targeted feedback from their perspective, but we also piggybacked on farmers markets, Critical Mass, which is like a bike ride. And we went to a number of other events to make sure that we get feedback. It helps us ground truth the data that we see because, we can look at data all day long, but what really matters is what these plans and initiatives mean to your region as a whole. So ultimately, this is a plan for you and your constituents. So another important factor that we'll be moving forward with and be able to dive in deeper now that you've approved this contract amendment is helping your staff incorporate a project list prioritization that takes all of those technical analyses and looks at our proposed program of projects and helps assess what our expected performance is. Now, this is a prioritization exercise that's different than the delivery, not to be confused with project readiness, but helps us get an assessment of which projects have the best impact on safety, system performance, and our state of good repair for our system. So we'll be reporting back to you as we look into those analyses. We'll be working in close coordination with your staff to make sure that the project readiness discussions are incorporated into that project scoring process. And there's a number of other things that are going to be very important that we look at in that project scoring. One of which is your congestion management process, which your staff did a fantastic job of moving that CMP project through. So the project recommendations, the performance measures, and the key recommendations from that plan will be incorporated into the MTP because by law and by good practice, this long-range plan is supposed to be comprehensive, and we want to make sure that we're incorporating all these different variables as we make recommendations for that long-range 25-year vision of your region. Like I mentioned, it's incorporating performance-based planning. So we're looking at these performance measures, talking to your transit partners as well, because it's a multimodal system. There's a number of other things that we'll be looking at in terms of active transportation as well. We don't have federally required measures there. But again, your staff have done a really good job of their TASA scoring process. And so we want to make sure we incorporate that. And like Mr. Medina was mentioning, this MTP really helps set up the opportunity for future grant writing and going after additional projects. So anything that needs to be incorporated as far as that long-term vision for the region, we need to know about so that we can incorporate it in this long-range plan so that, again, you can go after future dollars and keep the dollars that you have moving. We're incorporating recommendations from the Transportation Performance Management Framework, which is a business strategy, taking all those things and looking at how you manage your data, your staff, regional coordination, and again, queuing up projects for best expected performance and delivering a suite of projects that helps improve regional mobility for safety, travel time reliability, and keeping the assets that you have in good repair. It'll be incorporating a project prioritization methodology. We'll be refining that with your staff and getting feedback from you on how that applies to your Category 7 funds. In recap, that's taking a lot of the data analysis that we've performed, looking at the multimodal, intermodal systems needs analyses from how our freight interactions work with our surface transportation. We even look at rail, our ports, airports. Now we have SpaceX and we have a lot of different things. We have border crossings that are all impactful to how our regional mobility functions. That can go in through tools and methods for assessing our projects using GIS mapping tools. We do a buffer analysis to assign points based on that methodology to our proposed program of projects. So we can kind of see, okay, this segment has a lot more crashes than maybe another segment where we don't have a project. And so that elevates that project in its priority for how well it addresses our system safety. Other things that we're incorporating are the recommendations from the Sustainability and Resilience Analysis project that your staff helped guide. We got a lot of really great feedback through that project as well. So incorporating that public involvement feedback as well as the resilience analysis network, which helps us prioritize our whole system, at least as far as the number of key factors for resiliency. And so this can be used as a tool for looking at where we have flood-prone areas, heat vulnerable areas, and there's a number of factors in this tool that are built in that will be drawn into our project prioritization methodology. Another thing that we'll be using this for is to help identify a resilience improvement plan. So identifying key projects that can go after those Protect grant dollars, which was one of the recommendations from Federal Highways, is just taking that next step and using this resilience analysis network to then identify some key projects that you can add to your MTP list and go after additional grant monies. Now, these are competitive grant funds, but by and large, they are awarded pretty well. And especially if you have a robust process like your staff helped guide, it really supports good grant writing. Next steps, we're ongoing project administration. We've done a lot of our public outreach, but we still have some more public outreach we'll be doing as we go out to get input on the proposed program of projects. We'll be coordinating with your staff on the tabling events that they do for their quarterly MTP updates, as well as looking at finalizing that system needs assessment by incorporating the active transportation component, documenting our federal compliance, following up on the federal certification review, helping make the checklist, ensuring that we're complying with Part 450, which is our regulation that defines what must go into metropolitan transportation planning. And then we'll be delivering some draft chapters for you guys to review. Your staff will be helping us flesh in some of the ground truth and context of, what's the story we're telling here? Again, the difference here with an MTP is there's a little bit of a narrative component that can really sing the praises of what you're doing as a cooperative group. Tell the story of what your vision is for the future. And so we want to take that opportunity to highlight a lot of the good effort that you're already doing as a committee and that your staff are doing, because it really shows well to that regional coordination. And again, that our federal partners, when they see that in the narrative, really supports good grant writing and getting more monies in the future. So thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions on the MTP development, and we look forward to your feedback on the draft document.
Any questions?
Just a quick.
On the environmental, when we discussed this last year, it was determined that one of the environmental monitors is on the west side of Brownsville by the International Bridge and picks up all the southeast wind from Matamoros. So maybe one of the recommendations would be for them to move the monitor north Brownsville, where it picks up more of the real area of Brownsville.
We can definitely consider that. Having worked for an MPO previously in Lake Charles, we got a lot of Houston's wind, and it's definitely one of the challenges for, dealing with EPA. They don't necessarily, I won't say that, but yes, we understand the challenges definitely of, you have a lot of things that are not yours to control, but you have to report on. And so we do our best to try to make those ends meet. And we can definitely discuss that with our EPA partners to see what the feasibility of including that recommendation is.
So I had a quick question. I see travel demand model is going to be part of this process. When is that expected to be completed?
So we amended our contract to assist your staff in reviewing the travel demand on inputs that Jacobs and TxDOT are developing. So as they've developed, some of the considerations for where our transportation analysis zone assignment is, our staff have been helping your staff review those data and make sure that we're providing timely and valuable input. The timeline for the travel demand model development. So we're not developing it, but we're helping your staff review what TxDOT is doing. I believe is on schedule. The last I heard, despite, TxDOT had a freeze on contracts statewide. And so my understanding was that travel demand model is still on schedule for March, April of 2025. So yes, that will be a key factor in scoring project as well. As soon as the final travel demand model is delivered, that's one of the major components in our scoring process.
And that's exactly where I was going. That will help demonstrate what are the roadways that have a higher priority to ensure that we're working together in partnership to deliver those projects.
Right. And if I may just add, and thank you for bringing that up. And so my background is in travel demand modeling. And so one of the things that we have to understand is that this is a tool that not only is a requirement, by the FHWA, but it is a tool that later moves forward in project development, right? The engineers that are examining these projects will use this model, and then they will create a subset model, what we call at the quarter level. One of the things is that we create a base year. And so I think that one of the things that I'm interested in is the deliverable of the base year. The base year will cover everything that exists within a certain year. Say, for example, if it's 2020, if it's our base year, then from there, we create forecast years. So there's going to be an interim year and then, of course, a forecast year. This is very important because when we create the interim year, one of the activities that we have to bring to the TAC and to the policy board is the financial forecast. So there was a deadline that was presented to me sometime back when I first got here. And of course, I communicated with the district engineer to say, we are not ready to submit that project list, as we call it. We need to understand the economic forecast that is coming towards the MPO. This is a direct relationship to the current UTP that is active. And then, of course, the upcoming 2026 UTP. All of this has to align. So with that said, is that when we bring this exercise to the TAC and to the policy board, the forecast will be frozen, if you will, for planning purposes. From there, we announce the project call. And then, like it was mentioned just briefly, then we will examine the merits of the projects from a travel demand perspective. The travel demand model does not capture everything, correct? One of the recommendations that came from the review is for us to have what we call a mode choice model that incorporates transit. So if there is a need for us to be modeling transit, that's going to be a new tool that we'll have to introduce when we develop the next plan or when we come back to say we're ready to do it and we update this upcoming plan. So I just want to make everybody aware that as we move through the process, you'll receive a memo from me again saying that, please remember on this date, I said X, and then this is why we're doing this to meet the guidelines.
Discussions or questions? None. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 5G, announcement, State Transportation Alternatives Project Call, presented by our TxDOT FAR District.
Good afternoon, chair members, Madam Chair. My name is Jesus Noriega. I'm the Assistant Area Engineer for the Fire Area Office. We're going to do a presentation actually on the projects, right? So bear with me a second. Let's see. I'm going the wrong way. We're basically gonna we wanted to highlight 3 projects on our FM 1015 corridor. One of them starting on the north side of the expressway. That's FM 1015 North. And that project is from mile 9 to IH2. The contractor is Ring Construction. They're about 45% complete, and the estimated completion date is 2025.
Okay, just for the record, I think you're going over item 5H, which is a text dot letting report
Sure.
combination. Project updates.
Yes, Project Up, that's what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
5G, I guess, I believe, right? Or H.
5G was a alternatives project call.
5H. So it's project, the project updates.
Okay, we'll come back to
Apologize
5G.
for that.
Okay,
So back, it's FM 1015. We have 3 corridors. We wanted to highlight those. This one's from mile 9 to mile 9 to the expressway. Ring construction again. And the estimated completion date is December 2025. This picture shows the completed section from the expressway to mile 8. It's open to the traveling public already. The next picture shows from mile 9 to from mile 8 to mile 9, which they're working on the west side of the roadway, and traffic is all pushed to the east side. That's the next one is going to be the FM 1015 middle section, which picks up from the expressway and it goes all the way down to the floodway, maybe about 1,500 feet south of that. It's also a rehabilitation project. This one is about 53.10% complete. Texas Cordia is the contractor doing this project, and they also have an estimated completion date of December 2025. Basically, it's the same type of facing. You're looking at a picture here where one side of the roadway is being worked on. They're all the way to the top of the flex phase. They already put the MC30. They're getting ready to pave, right? The traffic's on the other side. So we're almost done there. And the last project is FM 1015 South. We wanted to highlight this one. It's about to start. IOC is the contractor of this project. They have put in the signs already, and it goes from the 281 to the bridge, right? So it's at 0% right now. And basically, they have installed the advanced warning signs, and they're ready to start construction pretty soon, weather permitting, of course, right? So now I'm going to, there's another picture, just a different direction. And I want to turn it over to Ernie Jaimes to present for the San Benito area office, Cameron County.
Good afternoon. Ernesto Jaimes, project manager out of the San Benito area office. And I'll be talking about 2 of our projects that are within Cameron County. The first project you see is FM 506. It is between Business 83 and FM 3067. The scope of this project is to rehabilitate the existing roadway. The contractor is Foremost Paving. It's 80% complete, and it should be completed by June of this year. Contractor is currently in phase 3 of construction. They are cement treating the flex base from the Colorado River Bridge all the way up into Cooper Lane. From Cooper Lane down onto FM 3067, they're lime treating the subgrade from the Colorado River. It's the second project I'm going to talk about here in Brownsville, Texas. As you can see, this project goes from IH 69E to SH 45. It's to rehabilitate the existing roadway. This is from being produced by the Posilico Civil. It is 33% complete and should be done by March of 2026. Here you can see the completion of phase 1, step 1, completing the curb and gutter and sidewalk. This phase is going from I-69E to Taft Street, and we expect to switch traffic to work on the west side of the roadway by the end of this month. Here you see phase 2, step 2, going from Porter High School down to SH 48. The contractor continued working on the proposed 18-inch drainage structures on the south side of the roadway. Next, I'll turn it over to Emma from the Roma area office.
Okay. This is the US 83 divided highway project in Starr County. The contractor is IOC Company. We are at 8.65% complete, and it goes from South Margarita Road all the way to Loma Blanca. So currently the contractor is working on embankment. They combined phase 1 and phase 2, so all the prep right away is completed. And next, I'll be presenting on FM 755, which is from FM 1017 to FM 2294, my bad. And this one is Foremost Paving, and they're at 15.85%. And the contractor combined phases as well. Here's just showing the completion of they're working on a detour, and currently they're installing CTB, portable concrete barriers, and they'll be starting with the excavation of the roadway. And I'll pass it on to Mr. Chapa.
Hello, everybody. I'll be presenting on 2 projects as well. I'm Frank Chapa with the FAR District Headquarters Office. Here at Advanced Project Delivery, we're doing the planning process and preliminary engineering for the I-69 connector project. We're currently working on schematic environmental. We're in the early process of it. This project would connect the I-69C to the I-69E. It's depending on which route we would take, it would be about from 23 to 26 miles. On the screen, you'll see the area of interest that we're studying. It's about 400 square miles, and we intend to construct a 4-lane divided rural highway on new location. The right-of-way and utilities will be determined as the route gets determined, and the PSNE and letting will be subject to funding. I guess I'll take this time to put in a little plug for our public scoping meeting that we'll be having next week on Tuesday at J. Economides High School at 5 p.m. and then on Thursday at Santa Rosa High School at 5 p.m. as well. The next project that I'll be presenting is the FM 1423 project, which is Valverde Road here in Hidalgo County. We're currently at 90% schematic. Environmentals also at around 90%. The right-of-way and utilities are ongoing. PSNE has not started. That will be started and is subject to funding. And the current letting date we have planned is in 2032. This is a widening of a 2-lane roadway to a 6-lane with raised median, and it is from SH 107. The limits are from SH 107 to Business 83. And currently we're still working on finalizing that schematic and environmental document. Any questions?
Yeah, just on 5G, I'll be taking this one. Real quickly, we are going to be having a state transportation alternatives program call. We'll be hosting a workshop and an in-person workshop on January the 23rd from 9 to 12 at the FAR District Headquarters Office at the Conference Center. And a second virtual option will be offered on January the 24th from 9 to 12. So just to advise you all and your staff, those 2 options are going to be available for the workshop. That's correct, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Ruben Alfaro, Development Engineer for the RMA. We're going to talk to you today about our strategic plan updates that we worked on this past year, or overweight permit summary and the construction updates for 365 Toll. So in terms of strategic plan, we had 2 workshops, one in October, one in November, open to the stakeholders and the board's input. And we implemented the strategic plan on the December board meeting. In these updates, we included some development milestones, and we define the priorities for our strategic plan. So what you can see here, it's our updated strategic plan. The main thing you want to look at is the numbers that we included. Those are the priorities for the RMA. We included 5 priorities, identifying the projects from 1 to 5. And then we also included the projects that we still have in our plate, the RMA, and the projects that have been transferred to TxDOT as part of the ongoing work. We also included some short-term, midterm, and long-term dates here, so you can see visually easier what the plan is in the future. And that's available in our website as well, in case you want to take a look at it in more detail. Some updates on the projects that have been transferred to TxDOT. IBTC, that's been environmentally clear. The schematic has been approved by TxDOT. We transitioned that project to TxDOT, and it's fully funded for construction. It is our understanding that the PSNE contract will be executed soon. The pricing has been agreed upon. It's just it's with PEPS defining the contract and getting signatures. In terms of the I-69, Frank already talked about it. The public scoping meeting is in January, and it's in progress. The schematic and the environmental are in progress. And then SH-68, latest is it's in the final stages of the environmental phase, and it's expected to be environmental clear by the summer. So our first priority for the RMA, it's segment 4 of the 365 toll. This will take us from Ansaldua's International Bridge to Conway Avenue. And it's our first priority with 3.47 miles in length and an estimated cost of $140 million. And we're proposing to let this project in 2029 if everything goes well. Our next steps would be to get an environmental refresher. It's environmentally clear, but we need to refresh that, acquire the needed right-of-way, and develop the PSNE for this project. And then our second priority would be Section A West, connecting from Conway Avenue all the way to I-2 in the La Jolla Relief Route area. That's our second priority. It has a length of 7.73 miles and an estimated cost of $320 million. And we expect to let this project in 2033. Talking about our overweight and oversized corridor, latest updates till November 30th of 2024. We have, or for the month of November, sorry, we issued 5,864 permits for a total amount collected of $1.2 million. From that, 983,000 went to TxDOT and 158,000 went to the RMA. Here's the comparisons. As you can see, our overweight permits have been increasing substantially from the previous years, 2022 and 2033. For the year of January 1st to November 30th, we have issued a total of 68,605 permits for a total amount collected of $14 million, from which 11.6 million went to TxDOT and 1.8 million went to the RMA. We're going to close the year at about 74,000 permits, and I believe the total amount collected is close to 16 million. And then the accumulated from 2014 to 2024, since we started issuing permits, we have collected $68 million, from which 56 million have gone to TxDOT and 8.8 have gone to the RMA. And with that, I'll leave you with Ramon to provide updates on 365 toll construction.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members. I'll be brief, going over, we are concurrent. My name is Ramon Navarro. I'm the Chief Construction Engineer for the Hidalgo County RMA. And we are concurrently constructing 3 projects, all affiliated with the 365 toll project. The first one being our wetland mitigation project. This is our environmental justice project in which we're creating a wetland, a man-made wetland about 2.5 miles south of Granjeno, actually along the border, really along the border. And we are mining for clay and precious soils to be able to go out and plant seed and plants and create the wetland. In addition to this, we are also implementing our toll collection integration project, which is where we are preparing and building and constructing the infrastructure for the toll collection system, which is going to be all electronic. This is all the bells, the whistles, the cameras, the electronic card readers,
the sensors and all the preparation to be able to put this equipment in. And in regards to the overall construction project, which is its 365 tollway project, this is the heavy highway project. You all know the project was let to Pullis Construction, PCI, on March 17th of 2022. They had 1,264 calendar days left. And as of today, we have approximately 242 days left on the project. We've issued 13 change orders at the time of the report. It's 14 as of the last board meeting. We got that report coming out to the board for this month. In addition to that, we continue with production. Here's some a picture says 1,000 words. We continue laying cement treated base, continue with the concrete reinforced paving. We're up to the 23rd floodway bridge now. We continue doing substructures along Jackson, Anaya, Highline, and preparing to go in at the San Juan Main Canal and the Main Canal, McAllen Main Canal, with some bypass systems. We continue partnering with the agencies and our irrigation districts and working at their availability. It has caused some interruptions, but that's part of being a partner, right? The better half of it. And we continue with the one major item that we have is roadway closure at I Road in Thomas. We are preparing the substructures for the ultimate roundabout or traffic circle to be produced at that intersection. We hope to have this finished no later than June, July of this year. And as said, we continue with substructures, laying beams, and pouring rail. Other than that, we're approximately 60.2% complete, and we've got about 70% of time consumed. The consistent delta of about 19 to 23% remains. That, like I said, gives us approximately 32 weeks of completion, and hopefully it's September 21st. We're not talking time extension, we'll be talking final reconciliation. With that being said, I appreciate your patience and willing to entertain any questions at this time. Hearing none, I'd like to remind the public of the oncoming hard freeze we're anticipating next week. We ask that you prepare and plan your trips and be vigilant when you're driving. And secondly, be aware and cautious especially when you're in the traveling through the construction zone. Obey the signs. We got flaggers. Remember, driving on ice is a whole nother monster, a whole nother mechanism that we're not familiar with. But please prepare and plan and be vigilant about that. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, under that, I know in the interest of time, just real quickly, but to complete the RMA report for Hidalgo County, I want to say that as chair, you know, our outreach to stakeholders is ongoing, making every effort to touch as many people as we can. My phone is available and rings, and I will make it there. I do want to appreciate TxDOT and our MPO. Very good meeting had with some of the stakeholders in reference to the western portion of the loop. We believe, I think, I'm optimistic that we're finding ways to, you know, kind of try to get everybody together and keep moving in a positive forward direction. But that's ongoing. Thank you, and that completes the report.
Good afternoon. I'll keep it very brief. I'll focus on some short-term priorities, and then I'll leave it open for questions. On the Veterans Bridge POV expansion, that was a Cat 7 funded project. That construction is now complete, so we have the additional private occupancy lanes already live and active. All we're pending is a final closeout with GSA, with one of the vendors for a building automation system. But the core scope of the work, vertical and horizontal construction, is complete. SH 550 Gap 2, we'll be meeting with TxDOT next week, but we have a mitigation within the right-of-way concept that we need to review before we submit that to the Corps. The plans are 100%, and we're waiting for the right-of-way agreement on that to be able to let the project. East Loop, we continue to develop that long-term priority for the region to get this truck overweight corridor that surrounds the city of Brownsville. We do have the 95% set that just came in for our review, so that 90 will go to 95 by the next report. and we'll get that into TxDOT's review pretty soon. Flor de Mayo Bridge, we do have an active presidential permit that was already approved, so we're basically undergoing the submittals for environmental on that project. Free Trade Bridge is a export lot that is actually being renovated. We're actually just starting that construction this week. We have the temporary construction building going on. It's about a $1.5 million project, should be completed by the summer. It's another DAP project, DAP fiscal year 2019. Old Alice Road, that's one of the projects that was mentioned as a FY25 letting. We have some utility statuses that are being touched up to be able to submit a final schedule and a utility plan along with this project. We do intend to let that in time to be able to let it before the May 2025 timeframe to get it in this fiscal year. Yep. Dana Avenue, we're awaiting some planning consistency elements to be able to environmentally clear that project. We've already got the PSNE lined up and ready to go, as well as our right-of-way acquisition effort and team. FM 509, we continue to meet with stakeholders. We've got the traffic that's been approved, and so we're continuing the preliminary engineering work on this project, as well as FM 1846. The other big project, and we're meeting with TxDOT on it this month, is SH 104, which is the second Causeway project. We've all kind of done some work independently. TxDOT taking the brunt of the environmental clearance, where they're teamed with Jacobs. We've got our consultant doing the schematic and traffic projections. So we're going to kind of line up here at the end of the month to be able to take the project to the distance. I think we're trying to shoot for a 2027 environmental clearance. And so we have a very aggressive schedule ahead of this. So in the interest of time, I'll go ahead and just point out everything else has been listed in the packet. If there's an individual question, I'll gladly open it up for questions. Thank you all.